Time now to focus on matters COP29, which is the Conference of Parties, the 29th COP Conference of Parties taking place in Baku, Azerbaijan. We are joined by Fred Njahu. He is a Pan-African political strategist at Greenpeace Africa. Good evening, Fred. How is Baku treating you?
Good evening to you, back to you in studio. It's very cold here in Baku, but we are weathering the weather and we are hoping for the best out of it.
Of course. A lot has happened today. We've seen, in matters, the conversation, the biggest conversation on the loss and damage fund. That has still been a very elusive dream. I want you to perhaps give us an overview, just very, very briefly in a few seconds. Where are we? Are we making progress? This is the 29th Conference of Parties. Someone who was born when this COPs was starting is now 29 years old. And are we making progress, especially with such conferences that continue to take place on matters climate change and climate action?
Thank you very much. I must say that we have very slow progress over the last couple of days. And as you might know, there are various thorny issues within the text that are yet to be agreed upon. The new climate goal, who pays for it, where does the money come from? And also issues like loss and damage, adaptation, mitigation haven't been sort of agreed upon. They are technical issues, but I must say that, money is political, negotiations are technical. So we are hoping that the ministerial this week will strike a balance on all those issues.
Indeed. The loss and damage fund is a conversation that, of course, countries are yet to commit to it. There is also the annual fund that, has not yet been actualized. Why is there this reluctance?
The reluctance is on lack of political goodwill, because at COP26, COP27, we've seen progress on the establishment of a loss and damage fund to cater for the climate action, especially for the vulnerable countries and communities and the frontline communities that have been impacted negatively by the climate crisis, especially those in Africa and countries in the global south. But the complexity of loss and damage fund, of course, stems out of the fact that at COP29, we have to design a new goal. That's a new collective and quantified goal on finance. And the Paris Agreement stipulates that you have to strike a balance between adaptation and mitigation. So since loss and damage is a new item that has been negotiated over the last couple of COPs, parties are wondering now, do we include it as part of the new goal or do we separate it away from the finance goal? So that complexity is there to out. But you quantify the goal.
Indeed. Now, on matters, of course, the loss and damage fund, Africa is often described both as a victim and a key player in the climate crisis. How then can this continent that has, been on the global south for, of course, circumstantial reason and, of course, a natural reason, how can Africa especially, and Kenya to be specific, leverage on COP29 and what will be said? Because, of course, to most Kenyans, this feels like, a high-level, glass or ivory tower conversation that doesn't seem to make sense to a lot of people. Can you hear me?
Yeah, the climate crisis has not spared us, even as a country, Kenya. We have lost quite a lot of, livelihoods and lives through extreme weather events that are related to the climate impacts. We had floods in May, we have had droughts in previous years. And our country is struggling to balance between addressing the climate action, but also other, socioeconomic well-being of the country. And so how do we leverage as a nation? Kenya is among the leaders, and we've been leading through Ambassador Mohamed Ali, the African group of negotiators, Our president is the chair of the, heads of states at the African Union level on climate. And we are seen as, the flag bearers of the continent in terms of negotiating a climate finance outcome that, African countries can benefit from. Essentially, that means very decentralized climate finance instruments that can be able to be distributed across sectors and across counties that we have. We have 47 counties. But most important point to make here is that the finance architecture, necessitates that we give proposals that are supposed to, generate climate finance. And Kenya has proposed what we call a solidarity levy alongside Barbados and France and is rallying countries to actually join in that coalition where, the highest polluters are made to pay for the, climate damages and, the destruction that has happened. You generate income. We have done a research at Greenpeace, that has found that we can generate up to $900 billion by 2030 if we implement, fossil fuel levies. So this money is supposed to help countries balance, their climate action as opposed to, having to cough money from their own budgets. Budgets are supposed to one other pressing needs like health and education and others. So there is progress along those lines, but it must be also recognized that African continent are facing, a high debt distress. We have limited tax, collection options as a country. So we need the climate finance at the global level so that it trickles down to our countries back in Africa.
Okay, so for the next decade, is there hope for Africa as we wind up?
Yeah, there is still hope because the multilateral process is a platform where countries can strike a deal, negotiate, and get the best out of the negotiations. We also have other multilateral processes that are coming up. The UN Tax Convention being one of them. It's a source of negotiating, global tax rules to generate, money for not just for climate action, but also other development needs for the continent. So Africa has to step up. We have to, to be as diplomatic as possible in the negotiations, tactical. We have to, build the bridges with other coalitions and countries, and also, strike consensus on issues that are of benefit to the continent.
Absolutely, indeed. Thank you very much. That has been Fred Njehu, Pan-African political strategist at Greenpeace Africa, of course, joining us from Baku, Azerbaijan. We wish you all the best in the remaining deliberations, Fred and your team.